Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtatara Satashishmari Divine Grace Abhay Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki Jai Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hare Hare Bol Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, Chapter 29, entitled Explanation of Devotional Service, text number 23. Dvishata parakaye mam Dvishata parakaye mam Manino binadarshana Manino binadarshana Bhuteshu badavaireshya Bhuteshu bhaddavairasya Namana shantim richati Namana shantim richati Dvishata parakaye mam Manino binnadarshina Bhuteshu bhaddavairasya Namana shantim richati Dvishata parakaye mam Manino binnadarshana Bhuteshu baddhavairasya Namana shantim richati Shantim richati Dvishata parakaye mam Lila darshana Jesu tattvayecha Amina shantim richati Dvishata parakaye mam Manino binnadarshana Bhuteshu baddhavairasya Namana shantim richati Manino binnadarshana Bhuteshu bhaddhavairasya Namana shantim richati. Mataji's. Dvishata parakaye mam Manino binnadarshana Bhuteshu baddhavairasya Namana shantim richati. Dvishata parakaye mam Bhuteshu baddhavairasya Namana shantim richati. Word for word, Vishataha, of one who is envious. Parakaye, towards the body of another. Mam, unto me. Maninaha, offering respect. Binnadarshinaha, of a separatist. Bhuteshu, toward living entities. Bhaddhavairasya, of one who is inimical. Na, not. Manaha, the mind. Shantim, peace. Richati, attains. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: one who offers me respect but is envious of the bodies of others and is therefore a separatist never attains peace of mind because of his inimical behavior towards other living entities. You can repeat after me. One who offers me respect but is envious of the bodies of others and is therefore a separatist never attains peace of mind because of his inimical behavior toward other living entities. Okay, purport is long, so we will give him the time. Okay. We'll recite the Mangala chant and then go through the purport and speak. Okay. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadhantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Lalit Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham Karati Vachalam Phongam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Tinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So we'll read the purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In this verse, two phrases, Bhuteshu Bhaddavairasya, inimical towards others, and Dvishata Parakaye, envious of another's body, are significant. One who is envious of or inimical towards others never experiences any happiness. A devotee's vision therefore must be perfect. He should ignore bodily distinctions and should see only the presence of the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and the Lord Himself as His plenary expansion as Super Soul. That is the vision of a pure devotee. The bodily expression of a particular type of living entity is always ignored by the devotee. So it's very interesting here. We're reading a section of how one who sees separately from the Lord is unable to progress from the lower levels of devotional service to the higher levels. So what that means is, as we've been reading in the last couple of verses and spoken by the previous devotees, that from just Kanishta platform, just seeing the Lord, worshipping the Lord, and not seeing the devotees as part and parcels of the Lord, that is considered to be on the lowest level of devotional service. Such devotees are still, especially in Kali Yuga, such devotees are very exalted compared to the materialistic scene we see outside. Because at least they recognize Gopinath as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But their only fault is that they're unable to relate and associate with the devotees around them. So what that causes is friction. And they bring in their baggage from materialistic existence. So they start to deal with devotees very materially, rather than in relationship with Shri Radha Gopinath. So then what happens is that Kapila Dev is actually telling very detailed, in a detailed fashion, he's explaining why everyone must be able to develop that vision. And what is that vision? Does anyone remember from Bhagavad Gita? What is that vision that should be developed? How does it begin? Okay, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. Okay, good. That's before one becomes a devotee in one sense. Brahmabhuta Prasanatma na sochiti na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. That's just the precursor, just before one enters devotional service. I'm saying on the platform of devotional service, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita something very specific, at least for a transcendentalist. Okay, for one who is attaining Brahmabhuta, before he attains Brahmabhuta, there's one principal thing he must know. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini sunicheva supakecha pandita samadarshina. He must be able to see everyone equally. And how does he see everyone equally? That everyone is just one blob? They're just individual fractions of the Brahma Jyoti? Is that how he sees everyone equally? That everything I see in front of me is just Maya and they're just the supreme, they are Brahman, I am Brahman, we are all Brahman, just in illusion. Is that how we should see? No. Prabhupada mentions in that purport that Pandita Samadarshana means that they see the Supreme Soul in everyone's heart. And if you study Bhagavad Gita, especially given by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, Prabhu, he explains in detail two visions. One is that one is able to see the individual soul in every living entity, but Prabhupada chooses to highlight and emphasize to us how we see the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every living entity. Rather, in every body along with the living entity. That's what Prabhupada chooses to focus on in the purport. And Kapila Dev is doing the same thing. This is yesterday's verse. One who worships the deity of Godhead in the temples but does not know that the Supreme Lord as Paramatma is situated in every living entity's heart must be in ignorance and is compared to one who offers oblations into ashes. So it's like Shrama eva hi kevalam. You make so much endeavor to do the service, and in the end, what is the credit? What is the benefit? Who benefits from it if one is inimical to other living entities? So, if you have a look, you can take this from many different angles and perspectives. And Bhagavatam class is an opportunity Prabhupada has given us to be able to analyze Srimad Bhagavatam from different perspectives. Therefore, we have different devotees speaking differently from different angles of vision. And that allows us to be able to understand Bhagavatam as a whole and understand that we can never get to the end of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, let's understand through the purport what Prabhupada is explaining to us, and then we can take it a step further and understand how this inimical can be, how not to be inimical in Krishna consciousness. Okay? So in this first paragraph, there are 3 paragraphs to this purport. The first paragraph talks about this inimical to other living entities. The second one, Prabhupada gives an example of how devotees are not inimical to living entities, how they treat other living entities. And he quotes Shivananda Sen, and how he feeds the dog on his way to Purushottam Kshetra or Jagannath Puri to meet Mahaprabhu. And the last chapter talks about how as devotees we are not committing violence. And he refers it to how we cook. We take foodstuff from the plant, the vegetable kingdom, or the plant kingdom, and we subsist on that. So Prabhupada leaves the third paragraph for that. And it's a very nice flow Prabhupada's giving us to be able to understand this verse, because first Prabhupada's emphasizing that what does it mean to be envious? Then he explains how a pure devotee acts non-enviously, and he also talks on a practical level on how our day-to-day life should be free from envy and being inimical to other living entities. So in this first purport, Prabhupada's explaining that Bhuteshu Baddha Vairasya and Dvishata Parakaye, these two lines of the verse, as you can see on the board, you need to understand here that they are saying this, it seems like they're saying the same thing. Inimical towards others and envious of others' bodies. It seems like it's the same thing. But if you have a look at the word for word, the Dvishita Parakaye, Bhuteshu Baddha Vairasya, we'll go with that, Prabhupada's first. Towards living entities of one who is inimical. And then we have Vairasya. And then we have Dvishita Parakaya, of one who is envious towards the body of another. Prabhupada's explaining here that one who's envious or inimical towards others, they never experience any happiness. They never experience any happiness. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna actually mentions that one who is not one who is not peaceful is not happy, or one who is not happy is not one who is not peaceful in this world will never attain happiness, even in this world or the next. One who is not peaceful. In that section, Krishna explains how one gets the mercy of the Lord by engaging in the Lord's service and controlling the senses. And by that one becomes peaceful, and then one naturally becomes happy. But if one's a thief in the sense that one engages in sense gratification, where's the peace? If you're a thief and you know that if you do this activity you'll be caught, where's the peace? Right? It's a perverted sense of sense gratification if you think about it. That the sense gratification comes from the fact, I may get caught. It's not in the activity of stealing. It's that sense, I may get caught. You know, that tension, that suspense. You know, in the movies you have it, when you go through, Mission Impossible or something, and you see some things happening, the chase scene, will he get caught, will he not get caught, like that tense scene. We feel some sort of enjoyment, some thrill from it. In the same way, a thief gets that thrill when they steal something. But that so-called thrill is just simply fearfulness mixed with this, I guess it's just fear. It's fear mixed in a perverted way. Because their sense of enjoyment comes from the fact that, I may get caught, I may not get caught. Will I be successful or will I not be successful? And they become driven to enjoy in that way. Of course, there are many different explanations, there are many different impetuses, many different motives behind it, of course. But this is one understanding, that how can someone be peaceful if they're a thief? If you steal something and you know the police is coming after you, how will you remain peaceful? It's not possible, unless you're completely dull-headed. And as I mentioned, you enjoy such perverted sense gratification, right? So, one must be peaceful to be able to enjoy, be happy. Otherwise it's not possible. So here, one who's envious or inimical towards others never experiences any happiness. And it's a very practical point that we can experience in our life. Enmity or enviousness towards other living entity is due to our own insecurity. When we are jealous of another living entity, then we think that, they have so much more, I have so much less. So we become jealous, we covet we want what they have out of jealousy. Enviousness takes it one step further. We try to stop that living entity from being able to avail of that resource, so to speak. To stop them in their progress, so that we may be able to overcome them. That is envy, and it's much more deep-seated within the heart, deep-rooted within the heart. And that envy emanates from our envy towards Krishna. You've heard that, right? We came to the material world because we were envious of Krishna. What is this envy? This envy is, we cannot comprehend, we cannot tolerate the fact that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and we are the enjoyed. We're not just jealous, we're envious. Why? Because not only, it's not just that, we okay, Krishna, you enjoy this, I will enjoy this. No. It goes even further. We try to even put Krishna down to our level. You know how all the Mayavadis say, to the unborn within, not to Krishna, but to the unborn within we must surrender. That Krishna is an ordinary living entity. He's just Brahman that's appeared in the material world just like one of us. That is enviousness. Trying to reduce the standard or the status of Krishna to something to our level or less than our level. Or trying to elevate ourselves to Krishna's level. It is simply out of enviousness. That's why Krishna says, Avajananti mam mudha manusim tanam ashritaha. Bahavo, I can't remember the next line. But there Krishna is mentioning that he's a fool who thinks that I've appeared in this world as a normal, mortal human being. They cannot understand me. Avajananti mam mudha. They are fools. And that foolishness comes from this inimical nature, this envious tendency. But with knowledge, one is able to eradicate this envy. Because with knowledge, then one is able to understand one's original position. One is able to understand Krishna's position. And by practice of the philosophy, because knowledge doesn't just simply mean theoretical knowledge. Jnana vijnana astikyam brahma karma svabhavajam. That jnana and realized knowledge, vijnana. Not just jnana, but vijnana. Practical knowledge, Prabhupada says. Applied knowledge. They say that engineering is applied science. Right? It means that it's in action. You use it day to day. That is what knowledge really is. And therefore in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions all of these wonderful qualities from 8 to 12. And he mentions that these are the real items of knowledge. Because you develop that, specifically Ananya Yogen, was it Ananya Mam Yo? No. That undeviated devotional service to me. In that list there is that Ananya Mam Ananya Yogena. So in that section, in that particular verse, or in that section, Prabhupada says that of all the qualities, this is the most important. That being undeviated and completely fixed on Krishna's service. That is the topmost level of knowledge. Okay, so that's knowledge and how one can overcome enviousness. Therefore, Prabhupada says the vision of a devotee must be perfect. He should ignore bodily distinctions and should only see the presence of the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and the Lord Himself. So here Prabhupada is explaining to us how we should actually see other devotees in relationship with us, in relationship with our service to Radha Gopinath. Our relationship with all living entities is not just between us and that living entity. That's what you call a material relationship. It's just me, my body, and that person and their body. And then all the other little bodies that come as a byproduct of our relationship. And then all the other bodies and our relatives and so on and so forth. But in Krishna consciousness, our relationship is always through Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. How does it work? I am a part and parcel of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. I am their eternal servitor. And all the other devotees are also part and parcel of Radha Gopinath. And they are also eternal servants of Radha Gopinath. And my relationship with other living entity is that we are brothers and sisters, as Prabhupada says. We are living entities engaged in the service of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. That's how a relationship is born in Krishna consciousness. Krishna is the center. And Prabhupada gives this example a lot. When you have Krishna in the center and when you have Krishna, when you don't have Krishna in the center. When you have a pool of water and you throw two rocks in two different places, you'll see the ripples form. But when they form and they come together, they'll collide with one another and they'll cause disturbance. But if you throw the same two rocks in the same place in the river, then the ripples, they are in harmony. They expand in harmony. That is because they have the same focus. When they were in two different places, then there's going to be clash. When they're in the same place, there's harmony. So in the same way, on the material platform, it's not possible to get any type of harmony. the only way is to be in connection with Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So we perform our service, we perform our activities, we relate with another living entity based on their relationship with Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. Like for example, we'll skip that, that's not really within what we have to speak today. But as we read in a previous verse actually, I think it was Adipurush Prabhu was mentioning, that when a person or a living, liberated soul sees other living entities and sees the Supreme Soul within their heart, then he sees not just the Super Soul, but he sees the other individual living entity with them, right? And so the living entity then treats everyone equally. But then there's still discrimination involved, right? There it's mentioned, Prabhupada says, that if they see a tiger, they won't go and embrace the tiger as if they would embrace another devotee. There's that discrimination still there. So here Prabhupada then clarifies further. The bodily expression of a particular type of living entity is always ignored by the devotee. That's interesting. Why is it ignored by the devotee? It's not that the devotee ignores it, completely. The devotee still possesses intelligence and discrimination. It's ignored by the devotee in the sense that Prabhupada will explain in the next paragraph, if that makes sense. This sentence and what I mentioned just before seem contradictory. Prabhupada says before that one does not embrace a tiger because of out of discrimination. But here Prabhupada is saying the bodily expression of a particular type of living entity is always ignored by the devotee. So why doesn't he go and embrace a tiger then? Right? You can understand this from different levels of devotion, different levels of how empowered they are in devotional service. Because we have acharyas in our line, like for example, Murari Thakur, what's his name? Not Murari Gupta. I can't remember his full name. He's a disciple of Thakur Suranga. His name is Murari Thakur, I think he's mentioned. But he has a name, full name, I've forgotten. It's mentioned that Thakur Suranga, he's a disciple. He's a disciple, a follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And once Mahaprabhu had asked him to take a disciple, become a guru. And he was thinking, how I can become guru? I'm so fallen. But because Mahaprabhu is saying I should. But then he kept thinking, no, I'm not qualified. So he didn't. But then suddenly Mahaprabhu appeared in a dream to him and told him that you must become guru, you must spread the mission. So then Thakur Suranga said, Mahaprabhu was given the order, okay, so tomorrow the first person I see, I will initiate them. And it so happened earlier that morning, or the night before, away, upstream, some family had mourned the loss of their son. He had died untimely. And so it's custom to either cremate the body or just let the body float on Ganges. Just let it float down. So that morning Thakur Suranga was taking a shower. He's taking his bath in the Ganga. And when he dipped down and came up, then he saw this dead body. And it floated towards him. And he touched its head and said, okay, now I will initiate this body. And he chanted the Hare Krishna mantra and it's in the body's ear. And immediately the soul came back into the body and he became alive. And so Thakur Suranga took his disciple and he took him back to his ashrama. And later on the parents found out that their son had come back alive. So they came back to retrieve him. And so the son, similar to the story of Chitraketu Maharaj, how the son came back by Narad Muni's mercy. And so the parents said, okay, come back, you are our child, you have come back alive, you should come back home. So Murari Thakur said the same thing as this child, the Harsha Shoka, the child of Chitraketu Maharaj, that which mother and father, right? You mother and father of my previous birth. But after I die, who is my mother and father? Actually, my spiritual master is my mother and father because I had already died. And now I've taken birth again by his mercy. So I am not longer your son, I am his disciple, like that. So he remained, and it's mentioned that he was because he had already overcome death to a certain degree by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was not fearful of death. So what he would do is that he would travel in the forest serving his spiritual master. And whenever he would see a tiger, he would slap the tiger and make it chant Hare Krishna. And whenever he sees a cobra, he'll catch the cobra and make it chant Hare Krishna. He was fearless. So he would not see the bodily expression, he would see the soul behind in the body. But that's a pure devotee. Right? That's pure devotee. Up until that stage of pure devotional service, we need to exercise our discrimination. Okay, so the next paragraph. It is expressed herein that the Lord is always eager to deliver the conditioned souls who have been encaged within material bodies. This is how the living entity does not see the expression. He ignores the expression and sees the super soul and the individual soul within the body. So keep that in mind. The Lord is always eager to deliver the conditioned souls who have been engaged within material bodies. Devotees are expected to carry the message or desire of the Lord to such conditioned souls and enlighten them in Krishna consciousness. Thus they may be elevated to transcendental spiritual life, and the mission of their lives will be successful. Of course, this is not possible for living entities who are lower than human beings, but in human society it is feasible that all living entities can be enlightened with Krishna consciousness. Even living entities who are lower than human can be raised to Krishna consciousness by other methods. So here you can understand what is being pushed forward is Mahaprabhu's mission. Yare deke tare kaho Krishna upadesh. Amara Agnya Guru hoy tare e desh. On my order become Guru and preach Krishna consciousness to whoever you know, whoever you meet, preach Krishna consciousness. Whoever you see, whoever you come in contact, preach Krishna consciousness. Preach the science of Krishna. That is how one is able to overcome this enmity or inimicalness or this enviousness of other living entities and gradually progress in devotional service. It's amazing because if you see that, this is a different angle of vision than what we usually understand as transcending Kanishta Adhikari and going to the Madhyama Adhikari. The Kanishta Adhikari goes to the Madhyama Adhikari. How? Does anyone know? How does one go from Kanishta to Madhyama? Ishvara tad adineshu balisesu dvisatsucha prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhyama. That Ishvara tad adineshu, with the Supreme Lord, he affectionately serves him with love. Ishvara tad adineshu balisesu dvisatsucha prema maitri with the adina. So Ishvara adineshu, Ishvara tad adineshu, for those who are the Supreme Lord, he deals with them with prem, with love. Ishvara tad adineshu. Those who are equal to him, maitri, friendship. Ishvara tad adineshu balisesu dvisatsucha. So balisesu means the innocent. He'll preach to them. Dvisatsucha, he will avoid them. So Ishvara tad adineshu balisesu dvisatsucha prema maitri kripopeksha. Prema maitri kripa upeksha. Kripa means to give mercy. The kripa goes to the baliseshu, but to the dvisats or the dvisatsu, or those who are envious, those who are against the Supreme Lord, they're upeksha. They're treated with indifference. They're ignored. Right? They're not cared for. They're ignored and left alone. That's how a Madhyama acts. So with discrimination, now going from just seeing the Lord and that's it. My service, the Lord, that's it. Everyone else that comes in my way, they'll be kicked out. Right? From that, they will slowly, gradually develop this maitri with all the friendship with all living entities, with especially the devotees, and serve the Lord with more and more faith and devotion. And then gradually, one will develop the discrimination that he is an innocent person. Let me bring them to Krishna consciousness. Right? Devotees are expected to carry the message or desire of the Lord to such conditioned souls and enlighten them with Krishna consciousness. If we are seeing in our devotional service that we are not progressing, that we are somewhat stunted, that we don't have the same desire and taste that we have when we first practiced Krishna consciousness, our chanting has just become a mechanical machine gun effort. Just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, just shooting blank bullets. then you can understand there's something missing and that the Lord wants you to progress further in devotional service. The Lord is not, sadistic, that He'll give you Krishna Prem, He'll give you some taste and then pull it away and see you suffer. No, He is such an expert. He's known as Rasa Raj, the king of all rasa, flavors or mellows of relationship. He knows how to bring a living entity closer to Him. He explains it to the gopis actually. If you see a beggar, right? If you give him so much money, he becomes so happy. But if you pull that money away, how much the beggar will lament, oh, I lost the money, right? So in the same way, Krishna, He makes His devotees mad after Him for their own benefit, and out of their own free will, they accept that position. And in that way, their relationship becomes deeper and deeper and deeper and more relishable. So, what do we understand in our devotional service? How is it that we're struggling? Then we can understand what is it that we're doing with other living entities. How is our interaction with other living entities? And we start with the Lord, of course, the supreme living entity. Then we go down to other devotees. How am I dealing with them? And then you go even further. How am I dealing with the rest of the non-devotees in this material world? Right? So if you go step by step and try to rectify how you're dealing with them, then you can understand that you can immediately or very quickly come to the platform of Madhyama simply by preaching. Because to be able to preach, you need the association of devotees, because you don't know how to do it yourself. You need to be guided. You need to be instructed. You need the inspiration from fellow devotees also going out. How many of you have experienced trying to distribute books alone? How many have experienced trying to teach Krishna consciousness to someone alone? It's difficult, right? The mind goes wild. You feel self-conscious. You feel difficulty. But then with another devotee in the area, distributing books, preaching Krishna consciousness, home program, Harinam, prasadam distribution, then you're able to get, that enthusiasm. It's contagious. You see that person distributing, you feel, I will also distribute nicely. I will give Krishna consciousness nicely. And then if some difficulty happens, Prabhuji, Mataji, this is what's happening, I'm struggling, you'll get some guidance, you'll get some support, and you'll move on. And at the same time, you're benefiting other living entities. So naturally, therefore, when we read and understand that from going to Kanishta to Madhyama is preaching, by the preaching, then you can understand this is how it works, the background, right? That Kanishta has no consideration for preaching. No consideration. The Madhyama goes one step further because their faith, their devotion is strong enough, they're able to go out and preach Krishna consciousness. Therefore, the emphasis is so much on studying Srila Prabhupada's books, hearing Srila Prabhupada's lectures along with our spiritual master. Of course, the main dish is Srila Prabhupada's teachings. Our spiritual masters are just simply repeating what Prabhupada has to say. But if we constantly read Prabhupada's books, constantly hear from Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual masters, naturally we'll develop that strong faith and conviction. Ka-nishta means steadiness. Ka-nishta means unsteady. It's pliable faith. What that means is that if you send a Kanishta out on the street to preach Krishna consciousness alone, they'll immediately, if they come across an obstacle and they're not strong enough, they'll immediately let go of their Krishna consciousness. That's what it means, pliable. Their minds can be changed very easily. Right? Just like how one goes from Hindu to Christian to Muslim back to Hindu. That so-called faith or dharma, that is pliable. That can be changed. But a Madhyama is more fixed and Uttama is most fixed. Most fixed. Okay? So then you can understand that by preaching Krishna consciousness, one will be able to come to the Madhyama platform. And it's not something that we can avoid. If we think we can perform Krishna consciousness in our own little circle, within our own family, that's fine, preaching's there. It's not there. It's there because you preach to the family, you preach to the family members how to become Krishna conscious by your actions. But if you want to take it a step further, we then become eager as the Lord is eager to deliver the conditioned souls who have been engaged within the material body. We take it a step further and bring Krishna consciousness out to others. And of course, it's mentioned so many times. How do we do this? We either go and give our time. Prana arte diya vacha. Right? We either give our words, we give our life. Prana arte, our wealth. Diya, our intelligence. Vacha, our words. Somehow or other, we must give this Krishna consciousness to others. If you can't do it personally, empower another person to do it for you or on your behalf. Right? How to do that? Encourage them. Associate with them. Fund the Krishna consciousness movement. Or go out with them. Even though you may be hopeless, you may be pathetic and scared, you don't realize how much just by going out with someone gives enthusiasm to the others to distribute books. This Krishna consciousness movement is like a touchstone. It's beyond our conception of how it works. If we just simply follow the process, we'll be successful. We cannot see the full scheme of things. We're unable, we're so fallen. The word Brahmana means broad-minded. And what's the opposite of Brahmana? Kripana. Kripana means cripple-minded. Very narrow-minded. Cannot see things beyond a certain scope. That's what we are, unfortunately. But the Lord, Namo Brahmane Devaya, He is the Lord of the Brahmanas who are broad-minded. How udharadi, how much more udhara He is. Broad-minded. He knows what's happening past, present and future. And so does Srila Prabhupada. So if we just simply follow their instructions, naturally we'll advance in Krishna consciousness. But how we advance, we need to know. We need to know how we are advancing in Krishna consciousness so that we can, again, go back on the right path. Bring it back and go on with our Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not some blind practice that you just chant and it just goes on. Life goes on, Krishna consciousness goes on, everything just goes on. It's an active cultivation. It's an endeavor. It requires a lot of mental thought. It requires energy. I'm like this, how do I progress? Bhaktivinoda Thakur used to take Ekadasis as his opportunity to reflect. How was I on the previous Ekadasi? How was my bhakti in the previous Ekadasi? Where do I want to see? And what is my KPI? What is my performance indicators for the next Ekadasi? And he would take his devotional service further and further. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a liberated soul, mind you. He was teaching by example how we must also become regulated. You know his schedule. How he slept only 2-3 hours. He only took maybe a liter of milk a day with some rotis and a little bit of sabji. That's it. He spent like close to 6 hours writing and preaching. He went door to door to build the temple in Mayapur, in the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just to engage others in Krishna's service. So you can understand from hearing about the previous acharyas how much we must be engaged in Krishna consciousness and what we should be doing. So, I've forgotten why I was mentioning Bhaktivinoda Thakur now. Does anyone remember? I've gone off on a tangent. Active cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Thank you, someone was listening. Good. Active cultivation of Krishna consciousness. It's not just some sort of mundane process that you let go. Okay? It's not something, it'll go on. It's fine, It's just throw the water there, it'll happen. That's not gardening, right? If I just throw the water there and here, it'll grow, right? It's okay, nature will take care of things. Mother Nature will put all the fertilizer, she'll give rain, everything is. No, you cultivate, right? You make sure water is there. You make sure the fertilizer is there. You make sure no insects are there. And you make sure there's a stick there just in case it's too weak to grow on its own and needs some support. Everything is there. All the effort is being made, right? Same thing with Krishna consciousness. But our unfortunate situation is out of our laziness, we take Krishna consciousness as some weird, fantastic, not psychological, but a phenomenal sort of event. Some, spiritual thing. When people say spiritual, it just happens, But that's not Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is effort-based. Just like we want to progress in our career, we make the effort to go to training. Every day we put our endeavor. We become more and more proficient in what we're doing. We take up more and more. We show the boss how much we want the promotion. We put our endeavor, we put our leg, we put ourselves out there. We pitch. We put the pitch that I can do this, I can do that. Opportunity comes, you take it. Step further, you develop good relationships with people around you so you can go further and further, right? Same thing is required in Krishna consciousness. But it's not so impersonal. It's very personal. You don't use and throw people that will climb the ladder. In Krishna consciousness, you take everyone. As you go in Krishna consciousness, they take you with them. So endeavor is required. And that's why when you make the endeavor, then you'll start seeing not just human beings need the mercy. What you'll start to see, even living entities who are lower than human can be raised to Krishna consciousness by other methods. For example, Prabhupada saying, Shivananda Sena, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, delivered a dog by feeding him prasad. The distribution of prasad or remnants of foodstuffs offered to the Lord, even to the ignorant masses of people and to animals, gives such living entities the chance for elevation to Krishna consciousness. Factually, it happened that the same dog, when met by Lord Chaitanya at Puri, was liberated from the material condition. That the same dog, when met by Lord Chaitanya in Puri, was liberated from the material condition. So the devotee, and we'll experience this as we progress in devotional service, we become more and more invested in Krishna's mission, in Prabhupada's mission, and less invested in our material desires. That is progress in Krishna consciousness. You will see, even within our congregation, there are devotees who are burning their life energy to preach Krishna consciousness. Where does that enthusiasm come? Where does that endeavor and determination come? It comes from the strong fact that the Lord is always eager to deliver the conditioned souls, and the devotees are expected to carry the message or desire of the Lord to the conditioned souls and enlighten them with Krishna consciousness. It's because their relationship with Krishna is becoming deeper and deeper and deeper. They're awakening that love they have for the Lord. And there are those who are just doing it because they've been asked to do it. And because they've been asked to do it, they're also progressing and becoming more and more purified in Krishna consciousness. Right? There's how once Garga Muni, the brother of Brahmananda Prabhu, when Prabhupada had come to the program and Brahmananda had paid obeisance to Prabhupada, and Garga Muni was thinking, should I not pay obeisances like that? So then in one class he asked Prabhupada, I think it's Garga Muni, it could be anyone else actually, in the beginning days of Krishna consciousness. Then he asked Prabhupada, everyone pays obeisances to you, but I don't feel like it. So should I keep? And Prabhupada says, whether you feel like it or not, you should pay obeisances. Then gradually you'll feel like you need to do it. We're not all born to, think about it, if you have a look out there, what Kali Yuga's life like, what Kali Yuga life is like, right? We have taken birth because in this Kali Yuga means how much we are against Krishna, away from understanding Krishna, right? And we are going against the grain. You know what that means? It means you're going against the current. The river is such a big pressure, so much flow, right? The current is going downhill. But there are fish that are able to go upstream. But with endeavor. That's us. We are making the endeavor to go against the flow of Maya. So naturally there'll be this, this restriction, this feeling of in the heart, you'll feel this obstruction that I don't feel like doing it, but I have to do it. That is naturally there. But if you keep doing it, over a period of time, you'll become purified. You'll embrace the mission. You'll embrace the practice of Krishna consciousness. And gradually, you'll become so invested in Krishna consciousness that you'll be thinking at every moment how I can please the Lord. And the best way to please the Lord is to carry the desire of the Lord. And what's His desire? His eagerness to deliver the conditioned souls. So then you'll go beyond just going and giving books or distributing prasad or chanting Hare Krishna just for the living entities you see with 2 legs and 2 arms, the human beings. You got to start thinking about the animals, the trees, the insects. You start thinking of how to liberate the whole world. Mahaprabhu told Haridas Thakur that he lamented. He was telling Haridas Thakur that, I've chanted this Hare Krishna mantra, I've come to give this Krishna consciousness to everyone. Right? I've given Krishna consciousness. But what about the non-moving living entities? What about those living entities. What about those who don't move and those who are unconscious? What about those? How will this Krishna consciousness movement benefit? And Haridas Thakur actually pacified the Lord. And if you read that purport, those sections, it's very powerful. Prabhupada explains that this is what a devotee does. He pacifies the Lord by preaching Krishna consciousness. He tells Haridas Thakur, Namacharya, he tells the Lord, my dear Lord, do not worry. Why? Because by your chanting, what everyone doesn't realize is by your chanting, it's going and it's hitting both the moving and non-moving living entities. And they are also chanting back in return. Living entities, you can understand how they're chanting back. Non-living entities, the echo that comes from that chanting in the forest is the non-living entities chanting back. So everyone is being benefited, my Lord. Do not fear. In another place, this is Namacharya talking about preaching. How, in another place, it reminds me of how Srivas Thakur pacifies the Lord. One day, in Srivas Thakur's home, in Srivas Angan, Mahaprabhu was sitting there. They did a yagya. They were doing a yagya. And there, the Nishinga Kavacha was being chanted. And suddenly the Lord went into the mood of Nishingadev. He picked up a club and he started roaring and running through the streets of Navadip with the club. And everyone saw him chasing with such fear, they ran away from him. And Mahaprabhu ran after all these people with the club. And after some time he came to his external consciousness. And then he saw what he was doing. And then he threw away his club and he came back very morose, back to Shiva Sangan. And he told Srivas Thakur that, what have I done? I have advented just to deliver these souls. But look what I am doing. I am going and chasing them. And Srivas Thakur pacified the Lord and said, my Lord, simply by chanting your holy names, people are being liberated. So if you're chasing after them and roaring loudly and they get to say your darshan, what greater benefit they can take. You see, the devotee's mood is to pacify the Lord. Why? Because it comes down to this one simple thing. Krishnera Nitya Das. They want to see the Lord is happy in all circumstances. Just as Srimati Radharani thinks, if my happiness is Krishna's unhappiness, then I don't want that happiness. If my unhappiness is Krishna's happiness, then I consider that unhappiness my happiness. Shachimata says the same thing when Mahaprabhu takes sannyas and meets her before he goes to Jagannath Puri. She thinks to herself that if my happiness causes Nimai difficulty, I don't want that. Because her happiness is to have Nimai back at home. But he's now a sannyasi. And if he sits at home, everyone will speak badly of him. But if he goes, what will happen to Sachimata? She will not have his association and she'll be in separation. So she's saying, my happiness doesn't matter because Nimai will be put into difficulty. But if my unhappiness gives him happiness or puts him in a good position, I'm willing to accept that unhappiness. So this is how a devotee feels in relationship with the Lord. Constantly thinking how at every moment we can give Krishna pleasure. So here, we'll finish this purport and then we'll end class. It is especially mentioned here that a devotee must be free from all violence, jiva himsa. Lord Chaitanya has recommended that a devotee not commit violence to any living entity. Sometimes the question is raised that since vegetables also have life and devotees take vegetable foodstuffs, isn't that violence? Firstly, however, taking some leaves, twigs or fruit from a tree or plant does not kill the plant. Besides that, jiva himsa means that since every living entity has to pass through a particular type of body according to his past karma, although every living entity is eternal, he should not be disturbed in his gradual evolution. A devotee has to execute the principles of devotional service exactly as they are, and he must know that however insignificant a living entity may be, the Lord is present within him. A devotee must realize this universal presence of the Lord. So I'll just quickly mention something about this because it's important to understand when we're preaching Krishna consciousness, people ask, okay, so we should not kill living entities, but you're killing the plants and animals, right? And by killing plants and animals, you're also committing this same offense. But actually, Prabhupada's saying here, whether you take leaves or fruits or something, it doesn't really kill the plant, first thing. Second thing to understand is that Prabhupada often gives this jiva jivan, was it? Jiva jivasya jivanam. One living entity subsists on another. This is the principle of material existence, right? So whether it be milk, you subsist on the cow. You need the cow's mercy to get milk, right? And you need the mercy of grains to be able to survive also. Annad bhavati bhutani, right? So you're dependent on something to survive. Even carnivorous living entities require the other living entities to survive, right? So Prabhupada gives this as an explanation, that we have to eat something. Therefore, God has given us plants, food grains, milk, vegetables, fruits to be able to subsist on. And then second thing now which being emphasized here is, okay, but isn't there karma involved? Right? That's the core thing. By killing, isn't there karma involved? Because what you've done is stopped a living entity. Like in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada mentions, if you kill a cow, for example, if it's supposed to live for 15 years and you kill it when it's 5, it has to again take birth as a cow for the last, and continue its karma for its 10 years. So you're not doing it any benefit by killing it like that. But in Vedic sacrifice, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains to the Qazi. He explains to the Qazi that by performing the sacrifice by the Brahmanas, by chanting the mantras, they gave the cow a new body. Got rid of its previous karma and gave it a new body. Rather, they were testing their mantras that way, and they were successful. Same thing here. When we perform this sacrifice, those living of preparing foodstuffs, offering it to Krishna, and then partaking of prasad, there's no karma involved, because yagna tat karmano Vishnu. Right? There's no karma involved in sacrifice to Lord Vishnu. In fact, the living entities that are used in the process, they benefit. Because they are then taken away from that lower form of life and given a higher form of life also. They are progressively going towards Krishna in that way. This is how a devotee benefits even living entities simply by eating. This is how we benefit living entities by our existence. We mustn't forget, now we've come to Krishna consciousness because of another devotees acting in such a way for the benefit of us. Right? So in the same way, we must take up that and repay our debt to the spiritual master by going out and giving Krishna consciousness to others. And however way we can. Nothing is insignificant in Krishna consciousness. We must start somewhere. Even if it means you take the endeavor to give Krishna consciousness to someone, and then in the middle of the conversation you get cold feet, you get scared and leave it, Mahaprabhu will recognize that. If you simply desire it, it'll come. And if you pray to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he'll give you the mercy. He'll give you the potency to be able to carry out that desire. Okay? So this is how a devotee must realize this universal presence of the Lord. Constantly seeing every opportunity to bring living entities back to Krishna's lotus feet, and seeing every opportunity to serve the Lord in any way possible. Not by neglecting deity service and going out and just preaching, but doing both. Okay, so that's the end of the class. I'll end here if there are any questions. Okay, we'll take one question. Yep. Yeah.
I guess this applies only for a pure devotee who's actually beyond the discrimination power, who don't actually have discrimination characteristics.
Yeah, and sometimes even we can develop this quality as well, especially when we preach Krishna consciousness. The idea here is that Prabhupada is explaining all living entities should benefit. So you should not see their covering, but you should see it as an opportunity to bring that soul back to Krishna. Like for example, once Prabhupada saw, while he was writing in his room, he saw one insect crawling. Right? And then he was looking carefully at that insect for a long time. Then Shrutigiri Prabhu came and said, what is it, Srila Prabhupada? Prabhupada said, he hasn't been moving for some time. Go out and take him to a leaf, he's hungry. Right? You see? Another time when he was in beginning days, then he saw a cockroach in his room. He picked it up, opened the window, said, I'm giving you the world, take it. And he threw the cockroach out. Right? So in different places, another place, Govinda Dasi tells Prabhupada, look, Prabhupada, it's a slug, like that. And Prabhupada said, oh, poor thing, chant to it. Right? So Prabhupada's vision was to see the benefit of that living entity in relationship with giving Krishna pleasure. That's pure level, and we progressively come to that platform. Slowly by practice. Or gradually, not slowly, gradually, yeah. So if I say slowly, it's like, oh Prabhuji, how many lifetimes Prabhuji? Gradually means according to our level of endeavor, okay? Okay, I'll end class here. So it's late. If there's any other questions, you can ask later. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.